Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's meeting. Just before I start, could I just point out a few health and safety issues? If we hear the fire alarm go, if we can just all leave the premises, follow the green signs, and we'll all have to meet outside in the members' car park out on opposite the police station. Right, without any further ado. Item agenda 1 will be apologies.
Chair, the apologies from Councillor Ashley and Councillor Brooks at the moment.
Thank you very much. Anyone else got any apologies? If not, we'll go on to item agenda 2, which is declaration of interests. There's none.
I think Chair, I'm not aware of any interests that need to be declared by members today. Thank you.
Then we move on to item agenda 3, minutes of the licensing committee held on the 1st of May 2014, which is pages 1 to 4. So we go through pages one at a time. Page 1. Page 2.
Actually, Chair, so I just realised that I was present, I think, at that meeting. 1st of May.
You were present, Delph. Fine. We can just make a note of that. Thank you. So it's page 1, page 2, page 3, and page 4. Could someone move? Thank you. We could just go back for any matters raising. Go back to pages 1. Any matters are raising? Page 2. Page 3. And page 4. If there's no matters arising, we then move on to item agenda 4, which is pages 5 to 14. And I would like to ask Tim if he would like to come in and introduce this item. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Chair, members. This concerns the outstanding Village Green application, which this council, as the appropriate registration authority, is having to deal with. Members will appreciate the matter's been outstanding for some time, and there are various reasons for that, none of which are to do with the organisation from our side, if you like. It's been the parties involved and getting the administrative arrangements in place. The matter was last before this committee on the 30th of January this year. At that stage, members, you agreed that all those members of the committee would receive, or certainly would have training made available to them on a date after the 1st of May 2014. And secondly, that the committee would nominate the 6 members of the subcommittee, which has already been agreed by this committee, would be set up to deal with this matter on a date after the 20th of May. The reason for that was to see if there were any amendments to the membership of the committee following the council AGM. The actual public inquiry in the matter has taken place, members, as you'll appreciate, and you may recall I updated that to the committee verbally on the 1st of May, even though there was no report before the committee on that date. The inquiry took place on the 28th of April, and both parties were able to complete their submissions that day. We were able to carry out a site inspection with the inspector. It was then agreed by the parties following that inquiry that rather than the inspector issue her report at that stage, the inspector would wait until an outstanding Supreme Court judgment had been handed down, because it was one which both parties agreed had particular relevance to the application in hand. That wasn't handed down until late May, and subsequent to that, both parties had the opportunity, which they took, to make some further written submissions to the inspector. And the position now, in terms of the inspector's report, members, is that I've spoken to her and that she's hoping to get that report issued in the next month, in the month of August. So the position sort of procedurally from our side, if you like, now is this. We've had the inquiry, we await the report, the committee have already agreed to set up the subcommittee, and the outstanding matters, if you like, if I can try and place the ducks in order, if you like, is firstly we need to know which 6 members are to sit on the subcommittee. Secondly, we need to proceed to the training of the members of the committee, and in relation to that, obviously those members who are on the subcommittee must attend training. And it doesn't matter if other members who are not on the subcommittee wish to attend that training as well, and I'd encourage them to do so. And then thirdly, if you like, once we've gone through those 2 stages, nominating the 6 members, having the training, the third situation, the third matter to be dealt with then, members will be there to actually call the subcommittee together to make its decision. So now, in relation to the members to sit on the subcommittee, you will recall I reported earlier, members, I think in my report of July 2013, that the political balance on a subcommittee of 6 members would be 4 from the Labour grouping, 1 from the Conservative grouping, and 1 from the Independent grouping. So now, in practical terms, members, I think that means that really, if they're willing, which I hope they are, to take the task on, we need to have Councillor Mills from the Conservative grouping, and we really need to have Councillor Harris from the Independent grouping. And I was hoping we'd be here today, but he's not. But we then need 4 Labour members to deal with the matter as well, and it's important really that those members who go on to who are nominated on the subcommittee today, if indeed we deal with it today, it's important that they are available for the training. And at the moment, I've arranged that provisionally with a set of barristers' chambers in Bristol to take place on the 11th September. It will take place in this building, members, even though the barristers are attending from Bristol. So in terms of my report today, members, you'll see I set out the 2 options, which were that we either nominate the 6 members today or we nominate them after the training. In terms of moving the matter on, it would probably be better if we could actually get the 6 names today, if that's possible. And as I say, it would be better from an organisational point of view if I could know today, as far as possible, that those 6 members are available on the 11th of September. I did email all of you last week, members, to say that I had a provisional date of the 11th September for training, and I asked if members could let me know if they weren't going to be available. Certainly I know Councillor Jones has already indicated to me he's not available on that date. I don't believe any other members have come back to me at the moment and said they're not available. So first decision then this morning, members, is are we going to decide today, are you going to decide today who the 6 members are, or are you going to put that off until after training's taken place? So that's the first question for you, I think, this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Could I just like to say that, from my point of view, I would like to see the 6 people being appointed from here today, because I know that training is going to take place, but we don't want to go through a training process and then so many people haven't attended. So I think really we should try and nominate or get some nominations of volunteers for there.
Can I come in, Chair? I would have liked to been on that committee where I'm on holiday from the 10th of September. Does it have to be on 11th? Could it be on the 9th of September?
Possibly is all I can say to that, Councillor Jones. My difficulty is that it's a matter of me trying to find a date when I can get council to come across from Bristol and do this training for us. It is the case, members, that I've spoken to the chambers in Bristol, and I've actually spoken to one of the senior council areas, the Queen's Council, and they have agreed to do this training very cheaply for the council, and so I'm a bit loath to put them off, if you like, if that's a date they can do, if I can put it that way. if we can possibly get around it. If we've got 2 members, then that's what we'll have to do. It is difficult for everyone to be available. I accept that. But certainly it would be helpful if we can try and stick that date, if it's achievable.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Like I said, we are unable to change the date of the training, and we appreciate what you just said. I would like to volunteer myself to go on the committee. Wayne, Phil. I know Stuart Ashley, Councillor Stuart Ashley. I know he's not here this morning, but he has asked if he could be put on the training list.
You did say that even though we're not in the subcommittee, we can still attend the training, or only the subcommittee? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Graham. No, any of the members can come to the training, and I would welcome as many members as possible to come to that training, even if they've not been nominated for the subcommittee.
Where is this meeting held? The training held here? It's in Bristol, sir.
It's okay. It'll be in this building, Councillor Graham, in one of the committee rooms, I'm hoping, yes, yeah.
So can we just
Chair,
go
excuse
through...
me, can I get back with you with my, because I haven't checked my diary, so I know I did check, but it seems
Yes.
that I got planned on
that will be fine.
September. Oh,
yeah.
Thank you.
So can we just go through what names we've got?
Councillor Waite, Councillor Thomason, Seaborn, Councillor Ashley, you said?
Yeah.
And Councillor Mills and Councillor Harris, discuss if he obviously agrees.
Yes.
On that last name, sorry to interrupt, Chair, with Councillor Harris, obviously he's representing the independent grouping now. If for any reason he were unavailable on the 11th of September, then it would be possible for that grouping, if they were so minded, to nominate another member who's not from that political grouping to take up their allocation. But perhaps we'll cross that bridge if and when we come to it. Hopefully we won't come to it. But I'm just making that point because I know he's not here today. Thank you.
At this moment in time, we've got 3 Labour councillors that have definitely come for training. We've got we've got Ray Mills for, and Myra, you were going to just check your diary and get back to us. Right. So really, we are looking for one additional Labour member. Have we got? Who have we got?
Including yourself?
Yeah,
Waite,
Stuart Ashley, what, 2?
Thomason, Seaborn,
That's it.
Ashley,
That's it.
Mills,
Right, that's
Harris.
we got 4. Right, that's great. But like I said, we want to throw the invitation open to anyone on the planning, on the licensing committee. That this, I think, is all good background. It's nice to have some training behind you. So everyone else is welcome to come on the 11th of September. Have you got a time at this moment? Tim?
Yes, I have, Chair. But what's proposed is that the training take place in the afternoon between approximately 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. I will confirm that with the Chamber's concern, but that's certainly what was being suggested.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
So at long last, we've dealt with that.
Certainly, in terms of the nomination, Chair, yes, thank you. And can I ask the committee also to agree now this morning that training will take place on the 11th of September? It's probably self-evident from what's been said, but just so it's formally recorded.
Is everyone happy with that date? Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, members.
We move on to agenda item 5. That's approval of the amendments of the Council's Acting Carriage and Private Hire Policy.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this the licensing committee approves with immediate effect the amendments to the current licensing policy on Is it not working? Yeah, I was okay. I could hear me. And I expect everybody else could as well. Sorry. And replace Appendix A, which is currently the convictions policy, with the fitness criteria for drivers and operators, which is attached to Appendix C of this report. The background to this is that the relevant legislation with regards to private hire and hackney carriage vehicles under the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act of 1976 and the Town Police Clauses Act of 1847 and Part 2 of the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 76 were re-adopted by the Council on the 7th of March 2008. And to go alongside that, the Licensing Committee approved a policy in October 2012, which came into force on the 1st of January 2013. That policy is to assist decision makers in assessing the fitness of applicants and licence holders. And as I've already said, the Appendix A of the Council's current policy has a conviction policy, which has served its purpose since it's been adopted in 2012. And many members, I hope, have found that very useful when making decisions on licensing panels. The legislation in Council's current policy does not restrict the use of hackney carriage vehicles in any area of the UK. The issues, 5.1, will deal with the fitness criteria for drivers and operators to start with. Due to recent changes with what used to be the Criminal Records Bureau is now called the Disclosure and Barring Service, and UK government with regards to convictions, what are relevant, what are not relevant, what we're allowed to use and what we're not allowed to use, is being necessary for the convictions particularly, but all matters that we look at when we're making decisions on hackney carriage drivers, to be reviewed. As a result of that, there is a licensing technical panel which sits overarching throughout Wales, which I sit on, and that panel has produced and collaborated to produce a standardised fitness criteria for hackney drivers, which should be rolled out and adopted by all councils in Wales. And not necessarily that it will do, because it's down to individual councils to adopt its individual choice, as it is with this council. The fitness criteria is much more detailed than our current conviction policy. And it's also much clearer for people to understand, particularly for applicants, so that they understand the purposes and what we will be assessing them against. The current it is recommended that this policy is adopted for our council, and if the committee agree today, then it will replace what is currently Appendix A of our current policy. With regards to the hackney carriage intended use, the Council currently have no control over where hackney carriages are used outside of the controlled area of Torfaen. Nationally, what is known as cross-border use of hackney carriages as private hire vehicles in another authority has become a matter of concern. And interestingly, just in the last 2 days, there's been that publication from Bristol, which I've put a couple of copies around on the desk. There's not one for everybody, I'm afraid, but there is a couple of prints I did this morning in a bit of a rush of something that's come out of the Bristol business, where the Bristol taxi drivers are revolting against the influx of hackney carriages licensed in other authorities, which undermines their criteria for assessing vehicles. This is a national problem, and a recent administrative court stated case, which is Newcastle City Council, on the application of Berwick-on-Tweed and others, determined that councils could place conditions on hackney carriage licences to ensure they are predominantly used in the licensing council's area. This is something which was challenged when Berwick-on-Tweed Council introduced it, and it went all the way to the High Court, and the decision is that it was lawful for the council to put that condition on licences. We have not suffered greatly with vehicles coming into our area. We have had one, and that's explained in paragraph 5.5, but that was resolved quite swiftly, as it was with Monmouthshire, who we have a good relationship with, and we work together in order to resolve that issue. However, we have got an issue where we have licensed a number of hackney carriages for use in Torvine, as far as we're concerned, but we know they are being used in Bristol. At the current count this morning, there are 8 licensed hackney carriages that we have licensed that do not work in Torvine. They are working in Bristol. There could be others. We're not aware. Those are the 8 we are aware of. That is just coincidental that came out this week, just prior to this committee. You can see the issue it's causing within Bristol and the upset it causes to the licensed operators in Bristol. I've listed in 5.6 the fitness criteria for a Bristol taxi driver. And the reason I've done that is to show that their qualification criteria is much higher than ours. And because of the nature of the city, they can justify that. We would never be able to justify that sort of fitness criteria in Torvine. We do have a knowledge test, but of course it doesn't test the knowledge of driving around Bristol, which is what they would have to do for their test in Bristol. So we are aware that they're being used, and we've had one complaint come in from one of the Bristol drivers about it, and their photograph, which I've attached at Appendix B, which is not very good on the reprint, but it shows that our signs are being covered up, and they're putting their telephone number across our required signs. Now, the only thing we can do under those circumstances is which we have done, is we've called that particular driver in, because it is one of our drivers. We've had a complaint about it, and we have given them a warning that they mustn't cover the signs up. But of course, we can't go to Bristol and enforce. So these vehicles are basically being used unenforced in Bristol. So there's a public safety issue, not so much for Torvine, but there is for Bristol. And I think that newspaper article is indicative of the issue it causes. It is legal for them to act as a private hire vehicle in Bristol. There's nothing unlawful about it. So therefore, we are suggesting that we introduce a policy which we call an intended use policy. That, again, was produced for an All Wales standardised policy by the Licensing Technical Panel, and it's been rolled out and approved by the Welsh Heads of Environmental Health for rollout across the whole of Wales for councils to adopt if they see that it's necessary. And I am proposing that this committee look at that intended use policy, which is attached to Appendix C, and the revised application form, where we would expect the Hackney drivers to sign a declaration that they will use the vehicle in Torvine, which I've attached to Appendix D, and I ask that the council, that the committee approve that for addition to our 2012 policy. There was a consultation process, and it was a 3-month consultation process. In fact, they brought it to the licensing committee for approval to go out to for consultation in January, and we start to commence the consultation in April. A letter was sent to every single licence holder in Torvine. An email was sent to all members and all community councils, and the consultation was posted on MySay on the council's website. We have received some telephone calls in the licensing team with regards to question what it's all about. People didn't understand it. But we have not received any specific responses to the consultation. There was one response in MySay, which said that it was a supportive response from an ex-licensed Hackney carriage driver. But we can tell that the actual consultation was viewed 54 times on the MySay website. So Am I on again? Yeah. If the committee agree to amend the policy for both aspects that I've set out, following this meeting, the policy will be amended and posted on our website, and an amendment document will be sent out to all private hire and Hackney drivers, and the application form will be adopted for use with immediate effect. Chair, that is my report. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Steve. So obviously you're asking us now to on the consultation. Are any members have any questions to Steve on the consultation?
I'm sorry, just question 5.8, Steve.
Yeah.
How many vehicles from Turbine are operating in Bristol?
8 as of this morning. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I agree we go with Steve's proposal. I propose we go down that route.
Yes, Councillor Mills.
Yeah, can I go in? We have discussed this at great length at previous meetings, and seeing there were no written responses, I suggest that we go ahead with the proposal and agree the recommendations at 12.1.
So the recommendation is in 12.1. Are the committee in full agreement? Can we have a show of hands, please? Thank you. That's unanimous, Steve. Thanks very much. So the item agenda 6 is the last item on our agenda, quarterly updates of licensing matters, as pages 44 to 67. Do you want to take anyone through that, Steve, or would you please? Thank you.
Take questions as we go, Chair, yes.
Thank
okay,
you.
this is this report is to update you on the first quarter of the period 2014-15, the months of April, May and June. I don't know where July came from on there, 2014. The recommendation is that the committee note and comment on the contents of this report, that the committee notes the delegated decisions, that the committee note the revised activity report and performance for 2013-14, and the committee notes the activity report for the first quarter of 2014-15. I'll go through the sections as I normally do, one at a time, under their headings of Licensing Act 2003 to start with. 5.1 on page 44, starting with 5.1.1 sets out a very brief précis of the issues that we've dealt with in this quarter. 5.1.2, the number of representations against applications for premises licence. And then they're set out in the following sections, because these are mainly delegated decisions or things that the committee must note. The first one, under 5.1.3, Pantake Park Bowls Club. It's quite a long piece on that because of the fact of the issues that were generated as a result of it, and I wanted members to be fully appraised of what had happened with regards to that. Basically, the Bowls Club applied to be able to sell alcohol to their bowlers and their guest visiting bowls teams, and they did it under a club premises certificate, so that was a restricted sale, just so that they could have a glass of beer at the end of a bowls match. There was quite a vehement objection by one resident in the area, who then whipped up quite a bit of hysteria by going round and dropping letters through people's doors. Unfortunately, there is a problem in the park, and the police accept that there is a problem in the park with youths and disorder. That's not being denied. The issue is that they were linking the problems of youths and disorder in the park to the people of the Bowls Club and trying to object to the licence of the Bowls Club, and none of the evidence that we received was linked to what the Bowls Club was applying for. So therefore, under the provisions of the Licensing Act and the regulations, all of the objections that we received were rejected as being irrelevant because they weren't relevant to the application. The police had no objections to the application. This upset a couple of the residents in the area. It's gone again, is it? Am I back? This upset a couple of residents in the area to the extent that where an actual complaint was made about the service that they'd received from the licensing team. It's difficult. We were following the legal processes, and what we had to do, it would have been, we could have called for a hearing with their representations, but the problem we have then is you would have been listening to representations on totally relevant issues if we had had a panel hearing. And this one in particular, we don't usually have this problem. I can't remember the last time that we rejected a representation. We might have asked people to clarify representations if they've been unclear and assist them with what they needed to do, but we've never actually rejected them outright before. We have said to everyone that if you have information regarding the activities at the Bowls Club, which they could object to, that they should put that in, but we had no responses to that. Everything was about the kids doing some pretty strange and weird and awful things in the park, which is happening already, whether they've got this alcohol licence or not. So that's just so that members are aware, because some members may have been approached by some of the members of the public in their ward with regards to this. The club premises certificate has been granted, and they're now able to legally sell a glass of beer. There's only cans of beer they're selling anyway. A glass of beer at the end of a bowls match, which I don't think anybody could see as being a particular problem. The next one on 514 is Green Lawn Social Club at New Inn. They've submitted an application to vary the club premises certificate to extend the opening hours and the hours of all licensable activities. There were some representations made basically to reword conditions and tidy the licenses up. We're doing this on a lot of licenses now where they're coming in, and once we get an application, it's an opportunity for us to bring the licenses up to date, considering that a lot of these licenses were issued back in 2005 when we were still struggling to cope with the influx of all of the applications. So the representation was to refine the conditions. This was all agreed. The representation was withdrawn, so the licence was issued on delegated authority. So that was a variation of an existing club premises certificate. TP Sports and Social Club in Garndiffath. This is a new application for a new premises licence. The premises was being closed for some considerable time, but this was a new business taking over. There were 3 representations made to the application, one from Social Services, because there was an application within it about adult entertainment, and they were concerned about the access to children to the premises if there is adult entertainment on the premises. One from the Public Health, Environmental Health Officer for the prevention of public nuisance to make sure that any noise from entertainment is kept within the premises and does not affect neighbouring properties. And the other one from the Licensing Authority requiring conditions with regards to the sale of alcohol to children and responsible sales of alcohol. A set of conditions were agreed. All parties agreed to the conditions, and all of the representations were withdrawn, and the premises licence has been granted using delegated authority. The next one on 516 is the Lion Hotel at Blenavon. The premises has been closed for a number of years, but the premises licence has remained on the premises. The licence has never lapsed. The premises has been totally refurbished, and a very nice job too, if I may say so, and into a quality hotel, and the licence holder applied to vary the licence to extend the opening hours to make it more conducive with a hotel rather than the pub, which it really was before. Again, there were some representations made from the Environmental Health and community safety, the licensing authority to have clear and enforceable conditions. There was a meeting with all parties, including the police, where we thrashed out all the various bits and pieces with the premises licence holder and the then DPS. A set of conditions were agreed. It says on this report here, at present no agreement has been agreed. Well, I can tell you as of yesterday afternoon, which is too late to put in this report, obviously, an agreement has been reached, and the end of consultations is actually today, but the premises licence will be granted now, and nothing else has come in. So that premises licence will be granted within the next day or two as a variation to extend the opening hours and extend the activities, because it's a totally different premises than the old Lion Hotel. Yeah. The next one is the Ebenezer Centre at Pontnewid. There was this was an application for entertainment only. It wasn't a massive. It is only as a community hall, a new community hall that's been built there, and that also is a very nice piece of building that I've seen. Basically, they wanted some conditions in, should they have music on the premises, and ensure there's no noise nuisance. Again, the licensee agreed the conditions, and the premises licence has been granted, with the representation has been withdrawn. There are two other representations outstanding that have been received in the reporting period that have not been resolved, and they will be reported at the next licensing committee. You can see that I've outlined some of the work that we've been doing in the following paragraphs from 519 onwards. And also, I've in 5111, that I've picked up that we've done 6 premises suspensions in that period for non-payment of annual fee. All of the fees have been paid, and all I can say is this new suspension system, although it's a bit of extra work for us in one way, we're getting the money in now. Very few premises that we got which have not paid annual fees. We've still got outstanding debts going back years, which we can't touch. But as far as the last 12 months is concerned, this has worked very well. It's been a great asset to us. FIFA World Cup. Obviously, it's all over now. I won't say anything because it's not my cup of tea. The ball's the wrong shape. Yeah. I just put that in there because this caused us an administrative nightmare, because the Home Office was messing us about, well, you wouldn't believe. They gave a carte blanche, yes, you can stay open in England, but not in Wales, thinking that no one in Wales is interested in football. Well, I think now football is not so much even national anymore. People are sitting down watching international games, which for countries I've never heard of, some of them. I understand, I don't do it myself. But anyway, after a lot of pressure, they bowed to the pressure to say that Wales could have these matches, but then they brought in this convoluted system if they had to apply for temporary event notices that they didn't have to pay for, and if they'd already applied for temporary event notices, they can get the money back. So anyhow, fortunately, there was not much call for football in Torvine, so we only had a few applications. But other ones, we had 10 applications on one application form. They still had to be put into our system as 10 separate applications. Now England got knocked out, they've got to now apply to cancel all of these temporary event notices, or they lose their allocation. They laid an emergency order before Parliament to bring this in for Wales. Why couldn't they have just said Wales have got the same as England? It would have been so much simpler, in my view, but no, they had to do it this convoluted way, which now we've got an administrative thing now. We've got to fill in a form to send back to the Home Office to get our money back, and to get the money back for those who applied before and paid the £21. It's a ridiculous situation, but that's where we're at. Yeah. The policy template for the Licensing Act 2003 is now complete. That's been quite a major project, which I've been organising and coordinating for all of the Gwent licensing authorities. So that because of the number of legislative changes that have happened recently, we need to review our Licensing Act policy before the timescale that we would normally have to. Plus the fact we felt it was relevant, especially with the Williams report, that all the licensing authorities had something very, very similar, so that if we did end up working together with different councils, then we would still have something which was compatible with one another, and we didn't all have lots of different policies. So this was an opportunity between Gwent to at least have some standardisation. I will be bringing this to the next licensing committee for comments on the policy. That's all as far as Licensing Act 2003. Any comments or questions on that before I move on to Hackney Carriage?
Steve, is it true on the 5-1-12 that the England team was home before the ink had dried on the licences?
I won't tell you what I had a bet on, but the bet was on that they were home before anybody else. Yeah. You're not going to offend me because I'm English, because I have no interest in football whatsoever. I move on to Hackney Carriage and private hire licensing. Again, the first 3 paragraphs is setting out what the team have dealt with in that 3 months in general terms, a summary of what we've dealt with. There is one joint operation with the police, which I've explained in 524, and I think, again, this is the second time we've gone out with the police where we've found less and less issues with the vehicles. This shows that these operations and these checks are having an effect. Nothing's perfect. No one out there is perfect. So we don't expect ever to find all these vehicles like they've just driven off a forecourt. But this is a good indication that we've got a very good and safe fleet out there. 525 is something I'm going to spend a bit of time on. There's one chief officer delegated decision in this period. It's from a driver who is alleged to ask 2 15-year-old girls to perform a sexual act on his person while he was driving the car. The police were investigating the complaint. The driving licence was revoked with immediate effect by the chief officer. We've submitted a report to the chief officer. The driver has since accepted a police caution for a public order offence regarding the use of abusive language, which means he accepted the facts of the complaint. So the facts of the complaint are that he asked the girls to, as I say, perform a sexual act on his person, which was the foul and abusive language. This is a serious breach of the Council's policy regarding not engaging in any sexual activity with customers or making any advance that could be construed as an attempt to procure any special relationship with a customer. So the fact that he's only had a caution for a Section 5 public order offence of using abusive language, the facts of the case make it more serious for us, and that for those reasons. Now he has been dealt with by the police, if he now requires to have a driving licence to drive a taxi, he will have to reapply and go through a full new application process, which means that he would end up before a licensing committee. And and he would have to explain these facts to a licensing panel. So there's that's the situation on that one. There are other investigations taking place into similar matters that have been reported directly to licensing officers, and that they may come before the licensing panel for decision in due course. The knowledge test, there's a synopsis, Appendix A, of where we are with the knowledge test. You may have noticed, we haven't had very many hearings for taxi drivers since we've introduced this knowledge test. We'll wait and see, because obviously the test for the hearings are usually for criminal convictions and not for their knowledge of the area. But I wonder whether the two are linked, and whether the fact that they have to go through this knowledge test now is sort of knocking out the ones that would normally have had a problem and had to come to the licensing committee. So it could well be filtering out quite a number of our applicants. But as you can see, that we've had quite a few have gone through and passed it, and we've had some positive comments. We've not had any negative comments about the test at all. That's all as far as Hackney Carriage and private hire licensing is concerned. Any comments or questions before we move on to gambling? Great. Gambling, there's 3 complaints investigated in the period. One was a non-payment of annual fee. The other 2 are to do with illegal gambling in licensed premises. There's the police and licensing officer have visited a couple of premises recently because of reports that there are betting intermediaries, which is a term used for someone who takes bets on behalf of a bookmaker or running a legal book in some licensed premises. It is unlawful to run any commercial betting, and I stress the term commercial betting, on any licensed premises. So if it's linked to a bookmaker in any way, it doesn't mean to say that you can't use the phone and make your own bet or whatever through your own bookmaker, because that's perfectly legal. But when you've got people actually taking bets for you and then running, the bookies runners, I think they used to be called, that is illegal. Now, there's 2 premises in particular that the police and the licensing officers looked at, and they've had words with them. They've never identified it actually happening when they walk in, but of course that's always the way, unless you're there all of the time and monitoring them all of the time. The other one was where the licensing officer and police officer walked into a club one evening and found people gambling between themselves on on horse racing that they were watching on the telly. That was deemed to be non-commercial when we looked into it. So that would be legal because it's a friendly game. Say if you were playing a game of cards. Under the old legislation, the 68 Gambling Act and the 64 Licensing Act for alcohol, it would have been totally illegal to gamble on a pub, and the publican could lose their licence for it. It's not the same now with the new legislation, so non-commercial betting is allowed. So that's just something that we've been involved in quite a lot in this period. Any questions on that before we move on? There's been 1 fixed penalty notice issued for a driver smoking in a licensed vehicle. And on street trading, 1 complaint regarding a trader blocking access to carers in Cwmbran. This was an unsubstantiated complaint because the van had been there for ages and ages, just as carer thought that they could park there and it was in their way. It was totally irrelevant. We've had a few problems with traders because some of these traders pay their fees by monthly instalments on direct debit, and the payments have dropped. So we've had a bit of problems chasing up with some of the payments for some of the traders as well, but they've all been resolved now. No issues with regards to charity collections, and I've given a little overview of scrap metal, where we are, what we're doing. The policy is being completed and we're starting planned inspections with scrap metal dealers, but that's not a matter that the licensing panel's committee will be dealing with because it's an executive decision. Prosecution and appeals. I mentioned at the last meeting that we were going to have a hearing for a not guilty plea had been entered for the street trader. That took place on the 30th of May in Newport Magistrates Court. The magistrates found that the case was not proved on the grounds that they believed he was a roundsman and was therefore exempt. The decision is contrary to all case law that we have and everything that is happening across the rest of the UK. The case law is a High Court decision, so this should have been followed by the magistrates, but was not. So the Council has immediately lodged an appeal by way of case stated against the decision of the magistrates. We can't appeal against the decision of the magistrates directly because there's not that facility if you are the prosecuting authority. So we have to do it by way of case stated. That means we go to the High Court in London to have a decision made. So we apply to the Magistrates' Court for them to ask the High Court certain questions, and they have agreed not to defend the application that we've made. They have asked the questions we've wanted them to ask. So we're now waiting for the High Court to come back and list it. The problem with this is, of course, that we're not just dealing with a normal not guilty plea or an appeal in a magistrate's court or a Crown Court. We're having to go to the High Court. We have to employ counsel, and it is going to cost money. However, the difficulty we have is that if we don't do this, we have licensed operators out there who are doing exactly the same as this individual, who are licensed, and they're not being treated fairly. They're the ones who actually complained. We're having to have a licence to do this. They accept they need a licence to do it, but this person has just been flouting it, and it's under their noses. So we have to now manage the situation, because this could take months before we end up in the High Court and get back to the because if the High Court uphold our view, then it will be referred back to the Magistrates' Court for the case to be reheard and a new decision entered. So it's a matter of us managing the difficulty in that period. Has anybody got any comments or questions on that appeal that we've lodged? Right. The last thing on the report is the licensing team performance. There was a minor calculation error, and it was only very minor in the last report, which we've had to do an amendment on for the Finnan database. It was only, I think there was a miscalculation of 3 when we ran the reports off of our database. We've had to amend them because of their auditing the figures that we enter, and they found this error in their audit. So therefore, I've had to report back to this committee to show that the new report, so that you've got the updated one. And that's shown at Appendix B. You probably won't notice any difference on it, to be honest with you. There's only a couple in the first section, which is it's on page 55. Sorry. Yeah, the premises visit. Oh no, sorry, it's on the SIP one further down. Sorry, that will be on the visits and engagements, where it says 20 off licenses and 50 on licenses on page 58. I think that we did 110 on this one. It's shown. I think it was something like 113 on the one that we produced to you. It's a very minor administrative error, but it had to be put right. So therefore, I've had to update the committee with the updated report. And then Appendix C has got the first quarter's performance. I'm not going to go into what our staffing issues are, because there's an ongoing internal problem. But we have been down on staff now since February for a particular reason, having already lost one member of our team to voluntary redundancy, that it has caused us some major difficulties over the last 4 months. So the fact that we have achieved what we have, I'm very pleased about. I didn't expect to, I've got to be honest with you. But you can see the first quarter performance figures there anyway. Chair, that is my report.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for that was a good report, Steve. So we come to his recommendations. So recommendation 1, that the committee note the comment on the contents of the report. 2, that the committee note the delegated decisions. 3, that the committee note the revised activity report and performance for 2013 and 14. And 4, that the committee note the activity report for the first quarter of 2014-15. All agreed? Yep. Thank you, Steve, for that report. And that concludes today's meeting. I'd just like to, just before the summer break, I'd like to wish everyone a happy, peaceful holiday. I know that us in licensing still have to come to some meetings, the same as planning, but on the whole, I think it'll be everyone's looking forward to a nice break in the summer. So we look forward to seeing you all after the summer break. With that, I'd like to close the meeting. Thank you.